Trying to get better about hitting record, you guys. I've gotten some folks who said, I really appreciate you recording because they watch it when they can. So
Yes.
that's nice to hear. So anyways, hey, welcome, October 7th. Today we're going to talk about what does it mean to actually be comprehensible. Val and I just had a conversation before we got started about comprehensible input, but we really need to understand that word comprehensible, right? I hit record already. That's my review. Our norms, y'all, if we had a guest other than me, they're sharing time and talent. If you got questions, let's keep them in the chat box. If you see a grammatical or cultural concern, let me know. We just don't want to call people out if we have guests. That's just kind of, we want to keep everything nice and neat and happy. So here's our plan for today. We're going to talk about what it means to be comprehensible. We're going to I need to just get some information for y'all for the next two sessions. Change a couple dates. Sorry to upset the apple cart there, but I need to change some stuff. Talk about some needs and wants, and then if you need a certificate of attendance, it's all yours. All right, so let's get started. And I just want to do the whole disclosure thing. All the stuff that I'm going to talk about today, I learned when I did that acquisition boot camp with Martina Bex, which if you haven't done it, it's a really good primer on comprehensibility, comprehensible input, and sort of the difference in what is comprehensible input versus sort of what I think we're used to as language learners in a traditional school setting. Okay, so the question. I don't know if you guys remember, we talked about, I think the last time, Stephen Krashen, he talked about I+1, that whole comprehensible input mathematical equation, basically. So the question today is, where's the line between the I and the +1? So the I represents what students can already do, and that +1 is what they can't do, and we're trying to get them up to it. Or another way to think about it is, what percent of what goes on in your class should students be able to understand? So think about your readings, your teaching moments, all the stuff that you do in class. Let's have a discussion, if you feel brave enough. How much of what goes on in your class do you think your kids should be able to understand, y'all? Anyone brave enough to talk? And let me tell you what I think a lot of people have done in the past. I think as language teachers, we have this notion that I'm going to stick to the language, I'm going to make them learn, they will eventually get it, I'm going to throw all this stuff at them, eventually they'll get there, right? But there's a huge disconnect in what they can do and what you're pushing at them. It's going to be real hard to get them to that point of understanding, right? Like, it's little baby steps. So the answer, most of it, y'all are classes, for me at least, I don't want my class to be a gotcha class. I don't want to give them like 97 vocabulary words and be like, oh, you didn't remember those two, so therefore you're going to fail, right? Like, we're not here as professionals to ruin kids' grades or to give them a bad experience, right? We want them to be speaking these languages that we're teaching. We want them to understand culture. We want them to enjoy class. Like, to me, the biggest compliment is when someone says, dude, your class is so easy. Do you guys get that? I love that when they tell me that. I'm like, yes, I'm doing my job. Like, because when you go out in the world, when you're not a teacher, when you're out in public, do you not hear people say, when you tell them I teach a language, oh man, I took 2 years of that and I don't remember a thing, or my Spanish class was so hard, or Russian, there's no way I could. We're here to prevent that from happening, right? So we need our kids to understand what it is we're talking about. So the flip side of that coin is, how much of what you do in class is incomprehensible to your students? How much do you think that they actually don't understand? And you don't need to answer. Just a thing to think about. Because I've been in those classes before where someone keeps talking at me and I don't know what's going on and I shut down. It wasn't even just a language class. Most recently, it's been a statistics class. They start trying to explain things to me and I shut down because I do not understand what they're talking about. But that has compliments in our class, right? Like, our kids, if they didn't pay attention yesterday, maybe they don't understand what you're doing today. That's really going to shut them down. So that's where we're going today. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to give you a quick little minute to read this little passage that comes from Sinosplice, and I'm probably mispronouncing that. It's a website that I found online. Y'all do me a favor and just try to read that. Tell me how it feels to try to read and understand it. You've probably had enough time to realize you don't know what's happening, right? Okay, so for English speakers, 80% of this text is comprehensible. That means you understand 80% of the words that are being said. 80% sounds good, right? That's a B. Cool. I got a B, right? But if I start to ask you, who's this about? What's it about? What's happening? Can you answer those questions? Not really. So we wouldn't call that comprehensible. While you may understand the words, you don't know what's going on. So that's 80% comprehensible. Now think about a kid who falls asleep for 5 minutes in your class. Okay, 80% of your class, are they going to understand everything that's going on? All right, take a look at this one. Same location online, 95% comprehensible. Are we understanding a little bit more than we did in the last one? You can maybe tell me some who's and what's happening. You have a little bit more understanding, right? This is 95%. Last one, I promise I won't make you read too much. This is 98 comprehensible. Tell me how you feel about this one. We can get most of this, right? Val and I were talking a little earlier about the issue of literacy. This would be one of those examples where you could use your context clues. You could use maybe if there are pictures. This would be a good practice in literacy and reading around it to figure out what a word means, right? We couldn't do that at 80% comprehensible, but we could do it at 95, 98 for sure. Okay, so imagine what this might look like in your classroom. If we give them a reading passage and they don't know 20% of it, or if they don't know 15% of it, do you think that they're going to be successful? Is our purpose to give them something where they don't feel successful? I think that's a real big philosophical question in language. We are so intent on like authentic resources and forcing the language on them. How are we scaffolding it? That's really the big question that I struggle and I grapple with in my teaching. I just thought these were great little examples, and I remember way back when I was in college doing my certification courses, there was some other nonsensical example, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I have a friend of mine who we did the program together, and sometimes we sort of reference like that one example, like how do we not be that example as teachers? Okay, so some nuts and bolts behind this idea. So Martina, when you listen to Martina's stuff, she'll tell you that communicative proficiency, that means how well you can read stuff, how well you can talk, how well you can listen. It develops through acts of communication, and comprehension is a precursor of the communication, right? So if you don't understand what's happening, you're not going to be able to talk about it. Just like in those examples we went over, if you don't know what a blorkin is or a flippity or a flu blob or whatever those things were, you have no idea what's going on. You can't talk about it. You can't write about it. You can't even answer really questions about it unless you're like a really good test taker, and you can, cheat your way through and find the words. So Martina will tell you students should be able to understand 95% or more of your language class. Does that make you put the brakes down, right? Does that not make you worry? Like, how do I make 95% of my class comprehensible? I have 17 vocabulary lists, and I have 37 verbs, and I have like 16 adjectives, and I have all the stuff I got to get through. How am I going to make it 95% comprehensible and stay in the language? Ooh, these are the things that make me crazy, right? Like, this is the hardest part of our job. So when we talk about what they should be able to understand, they should be able to understand the readings that you give them. And that's not to say just write something real quick that you know that they're going to understand, but think about it as, what do I need to do to scaffold to get them to be able to read the thing that I want them to read? When you're teaching, that whole teacher talk thing, right? Like in my class, I have the first part of my class is my teaching phase. Here's where I'm giving you the stuff that you need to be able to read and talk to each other and present. When you're having conversations with other kids, I'll get to this in a second, but you as the teacher need to make everything accessible for everybody in your classroom, okay? And like we talked about earlier, authentic resources. I have a PL tomorrow all about using authentic resources. I'm pretty excited to see how they suggest we use it, because those are tough. I mean, y'all are native speakers of your language. I'm not a native speaker of French. Even when I encounter an infographic or a news article, there's some words where I'm like, I don't understand this grammatical structure. This is a challenge for me. How do I teach this to my students, right? So you can't just like look online, grab something, give it to your kids. Like there's so much scaffolding and so much prep work that goes into using those authentic resources, making it 95% comprehensible. And this is something that really rang true with me. This note on differentiation, y'all. You know what it's like. You've got a kid who can give you a paragraph of dialogue. You've got a kid who can answer in full sentences. You've got a kid who can give you a couple words. You got a kid who sticks to yes and no. That's all they can tell you. And then you may even have a kid who will point at something and be like, that thing. You've got a wide range of abilities. Um, but our job as teachers, and this is something I really am bad at, not gonna lie, I listen to what they're saying, I respond to it, but I don't take it and reflect it back to my students. So if I've got the kid that just points at something or the kid that gives me one word, I have to start thinking, okay, so he just told me dog. Let me make a comprehensible sentence and give it back to the whole class. So whatever all of your students are giving you, the highs, the lows, our job is to take it and give it back in a way that the whole class understands, right? And that is a huge challenge. And honestly, I never thought about it before. I don't know why I didn't think, hey, make sure that everybody in the room understands what their peers are saying. I'm so focused on I need them to understand what I'm saying. That kind of never dawned on me that I need to be giving students access to what each other is saying. Um, like, I don't know, here's an example. Do you guys ever let your kids, if you're doing something in class and they're like, hey, what's the word for, like if you're studying animals, hey, what's the word for an antelope? And you're like, I don't, just look it up. I'm not going to teach you the word for antelope and make you guys responsible for the word antelope. If antelope is your personalized vocabulary, you need to know it. I've done that so many times without thinking, okay, they're going to use these words that their classmates don't know. Like, I got to bridge that gap here. So this was something that sort of really went ding, ding, ding in my head. So here's, yeah, the sentence that I got ahead of myself. We got to take what those kids are doing and reflect it back. Y'all, that was a real quick lesson. I'm getting better on timing, but I do want some takeaways. Like, let's have a discussion about when was the last time you were in the shoes of our students trying to understand something that you just couldn't? And how did it make you feel? And how did your instructor help or not help? Let's do some reflection, because I think did y'all all have to learn? I mean, we've all learned another language, whether it was the language we teach or English. Talk to me about what it was like when you were in a situation that you did not understand what was happening. Anyone brave enough to talk?
I can. I don't remember what we were doing, girls, Maria and Danny. I remember it was a PLT about something about the cat in the glasses. It was in the Spanish. Remember, Maria? She gave us in a Spanish language a paragraph. We're supposed to figure out what this is about. Yes, when you don't understand a language, I saw that just a picture, I saw just some title, and we're supposed to predict it, what it's about. And we were working with my assistant principal in a pair, and both of us predicted wrong. And we were in such a disadvantage because Maria and Danny, they understood the Spanish, and the two of us, so we just picked some kind of pieces. But still, I was happy even with that because it's a Spanish and I learned few words in the Spanish. Even my prediction was completely different. So, but it is a little bit kind of you out, you don't feel comfortable and you understand that you feel kind of stupid that
Right.
you adult and here is something probably something very easy and you still cannot do it.
And you brought up something great. We're all adults here. We all sort of have like an inner confidence, right? To get up and teach 30 kids a day. Imagine what this would feel like if you're 14 or 15 or 16, you're sitting in a school with all of that peer pressure. Like that adds a whole nother layer to your effective, like way up in the air filter, Like, I mean, and I'll tell you, I don't know if it's in the next thing that I need to click or not, but I look at some of the assessments that my district tells me I have to give. There's a reading passage from like Beauty and the Beast. It's in French. I'm like, okay, not really connected to what we're doing, but fine. And I went through the words one day, and it's got the asterisk that says, hey, look at the word bank. I'll tell you what this word means so that you don't get tripped up on this word. So out of like the 120 words of this reading passage, I think like something like 30 or 35 of them had an asterisk. So I was like, the math isn't right here. Why am I giving the kids a reading passage that off the bat I know they don't understand 30 out of 120 words? That's a big, big problem. That's already taken too much that they don't understand. And then you throw in other words that maybe they didn't even learn in my class. Like, I'm not setting them up for success with something like that. And I think that's one of the things that as language teachers, old school language teachers, they consider that rigor. Well, you need to figure these words out. You need to use your clues. You need to use this. And I'm going to give you authentic materials. And they don't realize what it's like to not understand something. And what's the benefit of not understanding? If you don't understand it, it's not going to get in your head. It's not going to get out of your mouth. It's not going to like get out of your eyes. Oh, look, my motion light went off. Sorry. Um, so, like this notion of comprehensible, we talk about comprehensible input all the time, but understanding what comprehensible means is pretty important, I think. Um, See, look, I preempted myself right there. I was going to tell you guys about my tests. Um, and another thing, we mentioned this earlier, talk about authentic resources. How do you make them comprehensible? I will admit, not been using a lot of authentic resources right now. I'm kind of tied to a textbook, and I'm so exhausted that I don't have the energy to try to find stuff to match what I should be teaching in like the authentic world. So I'm a terrible example right now. However, are you guys using authentic resources? If so, how are you making them comprehensible to students? And how much prep does it take to get them to the point of understanding?
I'm redoing it. I take an article, for example, and I see it and redo it on my own. And I print it. I make it nice, like a picture or dialogues, I, because I understand that they will not make it.
Do you
So what the
change? Do you change the
Yes,
wording?
I change according for the, what we already learn and how much I want them to learn new words. So like you were saying, approximately 95%. And I understand that for some students, it will be 95. For some students, it will be 35%,
I know. Um,
So, and somebody in the middle. So I cannot just throw on them that article. They will be lost, even people who is confident and I remember when I was in the Soviet Union, we took the French classes. They give us the only authentic, it was Nouvelle de Moscou. It was the newspaper. And they give us article, tomorrow you need translate and retell this story. It was awful. We did not even have at home dictionaries back then. So what the point? It was nothing. It was pointless. I want them to learn something.
right.
And talking about comprehensible input, I told you that maybe in a previous meeting. They also require that we have those 3R: reduce, recycle, and reuse. So reduce the vocabulary words and recycle them again and again, again and again. So that's what I go for. Those new words that I need at 2025 every day, I don't worry about them. I want them to learn at least the smaller amount, but they will be using them easy again, 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 again. So agree with this reduce and recycle. So agree.
And I think that's kind of really on par with what, this idea of comprehensible input, right? Like, we don't want to give them words that they don't need. We don't want to give them words that don't matter to their lives. We want to give them that stuff like those heavy rotation words. You're right on the money right there, Val. And that the 3 R's, I've never run into that as like a something to do in my curriculum. That's pretty cool. I like it. I like the concept.
Yes, and also when we take in this text and they say, I don't understand that word, I don't understand, I say, cancel this word, cancel, like scratch. And they try to read again, or highlight words that you know and you really like this word. And it's again, that word in this passage. So something probably about this word. So you can find many different ways to actually teach them. And it's going to be rigorous too, because they are thinking. It's the high thinking process
Right.
to use your brain. So rigorous, it's not the heart. It's a thinking.
It's the mental rigor. Yeah, I think,
Yes.
this is sort of a sidetrack, but that's one of the things that I think is the hardest to express to administration when they say, "Where's your rigor?" You're just teaching them like baby words.
Hmm.
The rigor comes in the mental processes. Like there's only so much your brain can do at one time. It's not necessarily about how many vocab words at once. It's about what they can understand and move from like just seeing it and hearing it to actually in their brain. Like that's a heavy mental load. Um, so that's something that I'm like, I wish that I knew how to explain that in a better way when someone asks me about rigor, because they're like, your class is easy, the kids all get it, and like they're doing successfully. Like, yeah, because I'm doing it so that they understand what's going on. I don't want, it's not a gotcha class. Um, anyways, Danny, Maria, you guys got anything you want to throw in here before we sort of wrap up the whole comprehensible dialogue?
And I agree with Val that we do need to reduce the amount of vocabulary. And so I teach Spanish too, and myself and Maria usually tell the students it's going to be a little bit more writing, more speaking. So we are demanding that of them, but at the same time, we still want to make sure that they understand, at the level, even though it's level two and they should have a certain amount. We want to make sure that they're still excited about learning the
Yeah,
language.
you don't want to kill their joy of being in your class. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
hard thing to develop on its own. You don't want to kill it,
right,
especially with like past participles. Here's your 60 past participles because we're doing preter and imperfect today.
right.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, y'all, I am going to flip to the next slide.
Mhm.
Look, that was my thing to say if we had any questions or comments or any aha moments. So our next two sessions, a little bit of change up coming at you guys. But before I talk to you about that, last time we had our first real collaboration session, and I didn't really have a focus, just kind of like chatting. And I want us to be able to get something out of it, like something kind of tangible, a good discussion about a specific thing that's really important to you. So I want to ask, and you don't need to respond today. You can either shoot me an email, you can respond today. Think about what topic would be meaningful to you for our collaboration session. And I know you guys all work together, so you guys are probably sharing left and right. But for people who might be watching this who couldn't come live, um, what would be meaningful and helpful for you? Like, I'm a huge fan of having professional development that you can use tomorrow. I don't want to sit here and talk all theory. I want to be able to give us things that we can use in our classrooms. The last collaboration session, I was so blown away by the way that y'all talked about culture, and the other folks who were there talked about like how they're doing culture in the classroom. It's like I was amazed. So the things that I was thinking of that might be of interest, what are no prep or low prep activities? Do you need literacy strategies, some sort of writing strategies? I just want y'all to think about, um, since we have this audience, how can we pull information from each other and share ways to do our jobs better without having to read a textbook or having to go to flag? What kinds of things could we support each other with? So think of topics that might be important to you. Let me know. I'd like to have a focus for our next collaboration session outside of, hey, you guys, I suck at teaching culture. How are you doing it? Um, um, and speaking of, our next collaboration session was supposed to be October 21st, but I have to move it back to a Tuesday, and I hope that doesn't mess with schedules. But if it does, I understand. I'm actually going to South Carolina to do a presentation at an Ed Tech conference. I'm pretty excited about that. So I get a little trip to Myrtle Beach. It'll be a very long time in the car, but whatever. So we're going to bump that back for 2 days. And also, I have a time change. So November 4th is our next CI strategy thing. And we're going to bump it to 4:30 because my school, we have another meeting that I have to host. I'm the Title I Parent Engagement Liaison, and so we need to have a meeting on that day. And I don't want to like mess up my time. So I'm going to meet here at 3:30. That gives me time to do Starlight at 4:30. So we're going to bump it back to 4:30. But I hope you guys can come because we have Christy Winkler. Are y'all familiar with Georgia State University? Are y'all familiar with them and culture? Do you guys know about this? Okay, so Georgia State University, downtown Atlanta, amazing teacher ed program. Not that I'm bragging because I went there, but really and truly, they do a great job training foreign language teachers. I'm probably the worst one that they've produced. They put out some amazing, amazing language teachers, right? Anytime I need a new teacher, I always call up there. Do you guys have anybody ready to come to a classroom? They're fabulous. Um, but they have this awesome center, and I'm gonna butcher what it's called. But Culture is the Center for Urban Language Teaching Resources. I should know this, but it's like a separate entity. It's only one of, I want to say 8 or 9, but there may be more of these like language centers in America. So they have a huge outreach program where they try to work just with language teachers. They will host, I think, next week. Have you guys seen World Languages Day? Hosted at Georgia State. They do all these outreach things. They do lots of stuff during the summer where you can come in and learn. And it's a really good language teacher center for like learning. And Christy is the leader of that. I don't know her exact title, executive director maybe. But she's the lady that runs all the stuff there. She's fabulous. She's going to come chat with us and sort of talk about what they do, how they can help, what they can do for us. Even though it says urban, they also want to get involved with rural folks. Like their goal is language teaching support. So I hope that that time won't throw everybody off because I think you'll really enjoy hearing from Christy. She's really amazing. That is the end of what I have. So I want to ask if you guys have ideas, if you want to teach something. You know, this is a real nice, comfortable group of folks. Nobody's going to be too judgy. If you are contemplating doing a session at Flag or Skulls, or you just want to teach adults, use this as your training ground. Let us learn from you. So if you have something that you want to share with us, please let me know because I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing this rusty up voice. Tell me if you got other ideas, things that we can do with Starlight, and what would be helpful for you as we are planning sessions, as we're planning learning activities. Let me know what you need, right? Like this is not the Shannon show. The goal of Starlight is really to meet the needs of our language teachers in rural areas. So y'all just tell me what we need and I'll try to find a way to get it. All right?
Um, yes, hi. Our school's pushing literacy right now, and when we did our supposed training, they pushed us in with the ELA, which is, there are a lot of similarities, but it would be really great. It seems like, especially this year, and I think my coworkers can agree, we kind of been pushed to the back, and we're not really included in a lot of stuff. I don't know what's going on, but I would really like to get, we don't really have that expertise. I'm always going to Val when I have any questions or I need ideas for things, but I would love something, on literacy or writing, how I can challenge my students in that. I mean, not just in, but, just in language in general, to get, because I'm still recent. This is all my fourth year teaching. I would love to hear something, from, experienced foreign language teachers, maybe what they're doing and get some ideas, especially with the upper level writings and readings. I'd really love to I mean, I've done some things, but I'd love to hear ideas and maybe things I could do to change and challenge my
Okay.
students even more.
Awesome. And you mean literacy and writing in Spanish, right? You guys aren't having to do like English literacy stuff, are you?
Well, cause this semester I'm teaching Spanish 1, so it basically has to be in English because they really want it to correlate with English to push the literacy in English because that's what they're getting tested on. But then for Spanish, yes, definitely for that for the spring semester, I
Okay.
would like to do for my Spanish 3-4 class, ways to challenge them even more.
Okay. I will do some looking around and I will do a lot of tweeting to see who can come on and help us because obviously, I mean, I'm not a literacy expert. Do you know Tina Hargaden? Have you heard of her stuff? She does Stepping Stones. That's the name of her new curriculum. But what is it that she used to do? She's not comprehensible classroom. I will think it's CI Liftoff. Are you on Facebook? There's a group about CI Liftoff. Tina is actually a literacy, like her background is in literacy, but she also teaches French and Spanish. And so all of the things that she does has a literacy base. So I will see if I can just reach out to either her or some other folks who might want to come on and just give us some practical literacy tips. That's a great thing. I think we're all probably struggling with that. So I'll look into that and I will hopefully get something scheduled by the end of the semester. Not that that's real helpful for right now, but we'll try. Cool, thank you for that. Anybody else got something I could research and try to get folks on to talk about? if you do, and if the people who are watching as a video instead of live, y'all just please send me an email, tweet at me, do whatever. Let me know how we can fill some needs that you might have. All right, and with that, if you guys need a certificate saying that you're here, scan that code. I think the online people, it'll still work if you're watching this later. And thank you guys for everything. It was so good to see you. Val, best of luck. You guys all deserve your 4-day weekend.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop recording and I will see you guys later.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.